Hello and welcome to the real day 7 of designing a tabletop RPG with Adam Bell. That's me. I say the real day 7 because a day or two ago, had recorded a separate video of me working on a different game. And it was more me explaining a different game that I had just sat down and written without the camera. And when I went through to edit it, I wasn't having that great of a time, so I assume it wasn't a very interesting video. Maybe I'll finish editing it at some point and release it as like a bonus day, but I'm not super worried about that. The reason I did that is important, I think, to the original conceit of this series, because I originally was making this to try to come up with a game for Zine Quest. But the ideas that have taken shape in front of this camera and the ideas that, this game is becoming, to me, feels like it's becoming a much larger project than something, one, I can get done by February, or at least done enough to pitch it to people, at least done enough to try to get some art done for it that will make people want to have it, because that's a big drive on Kickstarter, is some good tasty looking art, which is fair because a lot of games look really cool, so you kind of want to have games that look really cool. So if your game looks like it's really cool, it'll probably do better. That's what I'm saying. Art is great. It's going to be that kind of day today, I guess, where I really get sidetracked into something. But anyway, yeah, this project is shaping up to be a little bit bigger, a little bit more of a full-on game, and I kind of want to spend more time with it and probably keep doing these videos. I'm trying to decide exactly how to continue with these because I want to keep making them, but this is my last week of vacation from work. So starting next Monday, I'm going to have to be sitting in front of a computer for up to 8 hours a day again, not doing the cool stuff that I like to do. Yes, so the original idea of this was I was going to try to make them every day but not commit to that, and obviously that hasn't quite worked, but that's great because I like having a little bit of time between them to let ideas marinate in my brain and figure out new directions. Moving forward after this week, I am not sure the release schedule. I'm going to hope to maybe do like a weekly video checking in on this, but like if I really get into the weeds in designing this, like if I find the spark to flesh out the content, which I've mentioned is the hard part for me, doing the playbooks, doing the setting, doing level up mechanics, stuff like that is not something I've ever really done, and so it's going to be the hard part. So if I find a stride, there will probably be a lot of videos in that time, but if I don't find a stride, I'm going to shoot for weekly, maybe twice weekly going forward. But yeah, right now I'm thinking that probably the other game that I designed this week that I was going to show on camera but then didn't because it wasn't very interesting, because it wasn't a brainstorming thing. It was like here's the thing I made, let me explain it without preparing to explain it or having ever played it yet type thing. I'm hoping to be playing that tomorrow, so maybe I'll make that sidetrack video soon. I don't know. No promises. That might be my Zine Quest thing this year, assuming Zine Quest happens. 5 minutes of filming, rambly intro out of the way. Let's get into what I want to talk about today. In today's video, I think I was originally planning to do the character playbooks, and maybe start like brainstorming what a character sheet will look like, because I think that'll help design or help drive further design. But what I'm going to do instead, because of some ideas that have percolated, is start thinking about the campaign playbooks, because that way because with those I've realized I can further flesh out the setting and also differentiate the setting between different playbook or different campaign styles that you can have. And then I think I can look at those once I have a handful of those brainstormed, maybe not fully done because I don't exactly know mechanically what the campaign playbooks are going to bring to the table. I think they'll bring probably just rules for stuff that you'll only encounter in that type of campaign. I think both, I'm having ideas about that, so I may as well follow that lead. And two, I think that figuring that out is going to help with the playbooks. Figuring out what type of campaign playbooks there are is going to help me realize what type of characters I want to see in this game, because that is the part that is really like getting me stuck, is what type of characters, what are the playbooks going to look like, etc. So the thoughts that I've been having about the campaign playbook, one thought was driven by reading like the pitch for a game that Vinitio Valetti is working on called Epsilon, which is a very dope setting about, like, I'm not going to spoil the setting. Go look at his stuff. I think he posted a bunch on Twitter. But the crux of that thing is a huge endless city, which is also, you can see that in Slayers, you can see that in Electric Bastion Land. There's a lot of games, rightly so, about just monstrously large cities. Like, the whole game takes place within the theoretical bounds of the city because it is just so big. There's so much to do in there. And so I was thinking, wait a minute, right? Like, the base building playbook is one thing, and the setting I was imagining for that was, post all the rich people leaving the planet, then it's like people trying to pick up the pieces. But, like, what if a different campaign set with the same mechanics and set with the same, rough backdrop, whatever actually gets included in this game, people did pick up the pieces? Because, let's be honest, if all the rich people left, it'd be better, depending on, the destructive nature of how they leave and the state of the planet that they leave in. So what if a huge metropolis did indeed form out of the wreckage of everybody leaving? People got together and they built the big city. Maybe this is like a long sequel to somebody having played the base building playbook and then they succeeded. And now we've got this huge city, and you still got the same background things happening. Like, you've got terraforming robots that probably are constantly trying to take over this city because they're just, that's what they're programmed to do. And then you've got, people that cities bring a wild array of power dynamics to play, for sure, that you can mess around with. And yeah, there's just a lot you can do, I think, with a campaign in a city, and I like that. And so one of the campaign playbooks, I think, is going to be a city, like a big city, life in the big city, that type of thing. We've already talked about the base building playbook. Like, you're starting from a very small, like, village or something, and the goal there is to go out into the world and see who your neighbors are and see who's living around, and if they are in need of help or resources, or if they want to, like, join forces with you, you can bring them back and start building out building your village into a town, build your town into a city as the campaign goes on. So I think that one is going to be super dope. I'm gonna have to come up with a lot of, like, video gamey stuff, I think, with this. A bunch of filling meters, and once the meter's full, all of a sudden your town's bigger, which is probably a time skip, and stuff like that, so that you can really track the progress of this and track what you're doing. I will probably be borrowing a lot from myself on No Stone Unturned here, because I explicitly don't want this to be about, like, conquering people or anything. So I want to make sure the players are keeping track of, like, relationships with other settlements and keeping track of the impact of what they're doing with everybody else around them, and just stuff like that. I want players to consider what it would mean to build out a new city in a world populated by other people, and populated by people that are not necessarily in agreement with you about how to run things, and people that are just doing their own thing, and maybe you just have to let that happen. How do you work with them? But then also, how do you not kind of compromise your own set of values in doing so? Like, how do you fend off people that, like, don't care about who is here and who, has been making a life here and just kind of want to take over your city? Stuff like that, I think, is going to have to go into the base building playbook. The town building playbook? Yeah. The big city thing got me thinking, because that is something that appears in other games, like a big city. So then I start thinking, okay, well, what other types of campaigns happen in other games that we can maybe try to emulate here with one of these campaign playbooks? Like, what type of mechanics can we add, and what type of theming can we add to this world that exists in various stages, because everybody's just going to be a lot different. What other types of things can we add? So another one I had talked previously was like an adventure one. The adventure one maybe turns into something more akin to like a dungeon crawling campaign. I worry about that just because of a lot of the the realities of what dungeon crawling actually is, but that is something I might try to explore with this, and we'll see if we get anywhere with that. And so what I think I'm seeing here is kind of a possibility space opening up farther than my initial idea, which is great, because I think the other thing that this helps me do is this helps me like get over the problems I was having with making this the setting, because by including different types of campaign playbooks, it lets people explore different outcomes of that series of events. It lets people explore different outcomes of a world that comes from a series of events like we've described. And that's exciting. I think that's exciting. So I don't know how quickly each of these is going to get done. If like the base game only has the ones that I feel are strongest at that time, and then I can release other ones as like little expansions or whatever. And if people like this game, people can make their own. Of course, I always hack my games, please. I mean, not to sound desperate, I'm just saying you're welcome to hack anything I've made. Take it, make it your own, whatever. Yeah, so maybe that'll happen. That would be fucking cool. Let me just keep rattling off a couple of these that I think would be nice. I'm thinking, the terraforming robots are there. Those will look different, I think, in each of these instances. So you could have a monster hunting campaign where you're just out fucking up robots, and that's dope. You could have... I think what I mentioned when I first had this idea was like a historian playbook where you're just traveling the world and trying to document, trying to talk to people, not really getting into any shit. So you're kind of just going around, and the point of the historian campaign playbook would be to come up with like a history, would be to try to unravel the secrets of what had happened that led the world to this point. You can include mechanics in that playbook for like player generated history, as well as the GM planting secrets. I think it'd be very cool to have both like explicitly defined, because those are things that ideally are happening in every game, if you ask me. But having it explicitly defined, like the players are in charge of creating this type of stuff, the GM is in charge of creating this type of stuff, and then like leave a bunch not necessarily defined so that a table can find their own swing. So maybe I should just write these down and start like brainstorming what this looks like. I think the biggest thing that we're looking at here is each one is going to have like world building steps. If you're starting a campaign, you pick your campaign playbook, and then the first set of that is like, here's how you build the world. So here's how you flesh out the huge city that you're living in. Here's how you determine what type of settlement that you're starting your settlement building from. Here's how you determine why you're trying to document this, and how you are traveling, and how you are feeding yourselves. Here's why you're adventuring. Here's why there are something equivalent to a dungeon to explore, And then I guess so that might be like the front of the page, or a couple pages in a zine, and then the back of it is the mechanics for running, and maybe some advancement stuff depending on how it is. Like obviously the settlement building's going to have advancement stuff, so maybe everything just has like, once you've done this thing so many times, you improve it in this way. So I think there's a lot to play in there. I'm unfortunately making a lot of content for myself to generate, which again is the part that's hard for me, but this is exciting enough that I think I'll be able to do it. I'll be able to hack it. I think that's going to be it for today, day 8. I have thought about a lot of stuff here. I'm probably going to go try to write it down. I haven't really written any of this game down, which is going to be a problem soon, so maybe I should. I will see you in the next video. Yeah, thanks for tuning in yet again.